Hello my friends, welcome back for today's shave, which is brought to us by, I'm using the same soap we did last time at Clown Puke, which is a mix of all the ends and whatnots of our previous shaving, and some of it is just retained in here in the bowl from last time. I just let the lather dry and I just rehydrated it. My razor today is my Limey Batman. Wonderful gift. I treasure this razor. And we had just been through what on the news anyway, or a lot of people are just saying we had a snowpocalypse this weekend. We had a pretty good snow. We got about a foot, which for Ohio, at least central Ohio where I am, that's a pretty good snow. And I got to thinking, what did our boys in 1776, what were they doing? And they were in an area where they may get more snow or more storms than we do here, at least bad weather. And they were out in tents and in billets that they'd commandeered, so they were out in the weather, and I got me to thinking, well, what were they doing? Because there really wasn't a whole lot going on. But they were passing time, just like let me grab my towel here. Just like we talked about, what are we doing to pass the time? And so I take my back to my Boy Scout days, way back. Yeah, it's been 50 years since I've been a Boy Scout. Boy, this blade is not good. Let's put another blade in here. Do I have any blades in here? Yes, we do. Kai Pro Touch. That should be pretty good. I'll just pull one out. I'll carefully extract the old one. Oh dear, my hands are a little slippery. Pull you out, put you in. That's one of the good things about these kind of razors. They're pretty easy to change the blades out when you need to. Oh, there we go. That's much better. So, in my scouting days, our local scout camp was an old Army Corps of Engineers camp from World War II. There was a WPA camp before that. So it was pretty primitive, but it was just a wonderful place to be. Nice place to be a kid. And we spent a significant amount of time camping in the wintertime. And it turns out the time when I was a scout, which would be the mid to late 1970s, was fairly cold here. We had good snow, and when we were out and had a few bad snowstorms like we had this weekend, we tended to stay indoors much, and I gotta figure that's what soldiers were doing, staying out of the weather in tents or commandeered places. Probably doing things similar to what we did. Now we played card games, and I do know that They did have playing cards in those days. Although George Washington, the commander, really didn't like gambling, so they may have been doing a little bit of gambling, you know. Didn't play poker, but they had games similar to cribbage, or there's another game, I can't remember the name of it right quick, but it's very similar to, well, similar in many respects to what we played euchre when I was a kid, which is, you know, suits and trick based, and had, you know, trope and whatnot, which is, that probably is where euchre has its basics, roots. So they probably sat around in wherever they could be, playing cards and fixing their gear, and probably taking care of other things, fixing their equipment, and also probably, you know, the big problem that they had was they had a problem with lice, because, well, sanitation wasn't real good. The guys couldn't bathe regularly because, well, that kind of stuff wasn't there. So they were chasing down lice in their equipment and their clothing and blankets and whatnot. And that's where the term nitpicking comes from. They were going through picking out the lice themselves, or egg sacs, in the seams of their garments and in blankets, and, you know, anything where they could be, just to keep the lice down. And so my imagination has guys sitting around, some playing cards, others looking at their uniforms, picking out nits and throwing them in the fire, and passing the time, maybe writing letters home. Some of them, I don't know what the percentage of guys who could read and write, but those who could probably wrote for guys who couldn't, and made that happen. And they passed the winter and watched it go by. So that was what I was amusing about the what our boys were doing to winter over. I know there's no problem with this shave, but when it wasn't storming and inhospitable, my understanding is the weather for the winter of 75 to 76 wasn't particularly harsh. It had storms. It had miserable times too, when it was just wet and muddy and miserable. But I'm sure that there were outdoor things that they could do also to pass the time. And maybe we'll talk about that in another shave, because I'm already pretty much done and got a terrific shave. He's a Feather Artist Club SS, that's what this one is. Absolutely fabulous. Alright, we'll be using Gabels Bay Rum. We've been using, you've seen me use Tiger. But let's use a little bit of this. Now the problem with this is it comes squirting out of there pretty quick if you're not careful. And I'll use this one's got a different kind of bay rum fragrance, and mixed with other ones, which is why I have that Dog from Every Town Bay Rum. This is a good, a little bit clove heavy. That's what this one smells like. Very nice. Thank you so much for putting up with me just musing on what was going on in the winter of our revolution. I'm just now getting to the point where my mustache is starting to be ready to curl. But since I've gotten older, my beard's gotten more coarse, and it's not being as easily trained as it used to be. I'm Major Rich. You find me at theshavingcutter.com. If you've made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe if you're so inclined, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.